Good morning and welcome to our Facebook Live this morning. My name's Jenny McCormack and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator, and I'm based in the market town of Brackley in Northamptonshire in the UK. Thank you for joining us. Do say hi if you're live, or if you're on a replay or catch up either here on Facebook or on YouTube. Then if you have any queries or comments, then do pop them in and I'll monitor those and get back to you if there's any answers required. Morning Catherine, I hope you're well and I hope you had a nice weekend. Right, let's get cracking for a Monday morning. A little bit overcast this morning, but it's nice and pleasantly warm. The stamp set that we're using this week is called Cheerful Basket, as you can see. It features a basket, and then there's various things that you can put in, various supplies you can put in your basket. So we have some supplies here that could be craft, it could be sewing. We have some apples, we have some hearts, and then we have a cute little cat and a butterfly. We used this at Coffee and Card on Friday, and the ladies made some really great cards. There are some coordinating dies to this particular set that cut out the basket, obviously all of these elements as well. Let me just find you the page number it's on if you want to look it up. It is on page 35 of our annual catalogue, and it's featured down here. And the stamp set itself is £18, so it's a good price. This is obviously in the UK. And then the bundle, which is the stamp set and all of the dies, is £45, and that's discounted from £50, so it's a 10% discount when you buy the two together. And all of these dies will fit in our little mini machine. Good morning, Jeanette. And as well as cutting out these elements, there are more detailed elements for the basket, and there's a little handkerchief, there's some foliage, there's all sorts of bits and pieces that you can add to it. Morning, Carol. Haven't seen you for a while. I hope you're well. So this is going to be our stamp set of the week, so I'll be featuring it all week in different guises. And it's also our coffee and card design for this week. So we had coffee and card on Friday in Brackley, and we have it again this afternoon. So there were some great designs. And what I decided to do, because not all of my attendees at Coffee and Card like a lot of colouring, so rather than have to stamp and colour in this basket, what we did was we stamped the basket onto some Crumb Cake card. You could stamp it onto any coloured card. If you wanted a sort of weathered look, you could stamp it onto Balmy Blue, for example, but I used Crumb Cake, and I did all the stamping with, of course, Early Espresso. Let me just turn my lights around a little bit. There we go. Okay. So what we're going to do to start with is just stamp the basket onto a spare piece of Crumb Cake. And we're using note cards and envelopes. This is what I use a fair amount of time, not all the time, but a fair amount of time for Coffee and Card, because it means that I can supply a whole range of backing pieces to change the colours and not have to produce lots of different pieces of card to match up people's designs. So I'm just going to stamp that onto there. Hi Kerry, good evening to you. Now you could just leave it like that, or you could do a little bit of shading, which is what we're going to do. And as always, it's easier to shade when it's here before you cut it out. And I'm just going to use some paper snips to cut it. It's a really easy design to cut. So I've got light and dark Crumb Cake pens. I'm just going to take my glasses off so I can see. And I'm just going to add a little bit of shading under these pieces of the barrel. I'm sure there's a proper name for these, the bits that go round that way, like so. But you could leave this uncoloured if you wanted to, and you could also stamp onto white card or vanilla card and colour it any colour you want. So I'm just adding a little bit of detail here where these slats of the basket or barrel overlap. So this is dark Crumb Cake I've used there, and just a little bit here as well. And then I use light Crumb Cake just to go over. And then I'm going to cut this out and use dimensionals when we pop it onto the card. So following the lines here, that the designers have incorporated. So I hope everybody is well who's joined us and that you had a nice weekend. It certainly seemed to go very quickly, as it always does. So this is light Crumb Cake I'm using. Might leave that handle light actually, like that. Let me just see. I haven't got much ink on that side. I'll stick to this one. So we're hurtling towards the Platinum Jubilee weekend, the 4th of June. Well, 3rd and 4th is a holiday here, and then the 5th of June is a Saturday. So there's lots of activities going on here in Brackley. So for those that are in the UK, I hope there's local activities for you too. We've got carnival and street parties. We're organising a street party for where I live. Luckily, we have a small green, so we're having an afternoon tea party on the green where people just bring in their own food and everything, and a good opportunity to get together. Oh, Kerry did some crafting, excellent. That's what we like to hear. You obviously didn't have any visitors then, Kerry, this time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is stamp a plain one again. Hi Sylvia. Just so that you can see the difference between it stamped and coloured and just being stamped. Like so. So I think that really makes a difference. But if you didn't see that one, I think the other one still works. So what we're going to do is I've got a piece of white card that's going to be our base. And we're going to pop our basket on and then add our filling. So I'm just going to cut this one out. Just nice and quickly. And it has got a little bit of detail on the sides, but I'm literally just cutting through that. Like so. And then cutting this bit off at the bottom. Now, because of its shape, it's quite easy for example, to cut off this piece here. If you wanted a smaller base, you could also cut a little bit off the bottom, or you could cut it after that piece there. So you can vary the size of your basket accordingly. Oh, bless you, Kerry. Hello, Wendy. Hope you're well. Thanks for joining us. It's really lovely to see you here. So obviously we want to put our basket here, and then we want to stamp our detail. And for our card today, as we're going to be crafty, we're going to use these little craft supplies. And as I say, this could be used for sewing as well. These two little bottles here are remarkably similar to Stampin' Up ink refills, and that's remarkably similar to a Stampin' Up ink pad. And then we've got pens, scissors, some ribbon. But I think, if you didn't know, you could do this for a sewer or an artist. It doesn't necessarily obviously have to be designed as Stampin' Up. But I want to stamp my image so it's just in the basket. So what I recommend is you can take your basket as you've cut it out, position it on your card, and then what I did was I just moved it down literally a millimetre or two, and then you can either draw a line, which I will do so you can see it hopefully a bit better, or what you can do is just put a little line of dots, and then that is going to be the line on which we're going to stamp our contents. And then when you pop this back up, you covering up the line, even if you could see it. Now I'm not even sure that you could see this. I've done it fairly faintly, barely, but I can see it. That's the main thing, because what I don't want to do is stamp over the edge of here. I don't want it too high, although you could obviously bring this up a little bit, and I don't want it too low that I cut everything off, although you could cut the bottom of this. So that was just the guideline that I used on Friday, and it worked really well. So I've got my little craft supplies stamp, and because this is photopolymer, I am using a matte underneath, and this is Early Espresso. I do need to take my glasses off, and I'm just going to centralise this over my pencil line, like so. So that means I've got the ability now to sort of move this to make sure it's nicely nested inside. Okay, but as I say, if it was too high, you could just move your basket up a little bit and put something underneath to make it look like it's on the ground. And if it's too low, you could cut off a little bit of this bit and lower it down. And because I'm covering up the pencil line, I don't even need to rub it out. Okay, so let's finish the stamping. So I'm just going to put a birthday message on the top. With the stamp set, you fill my day with happiness, which is great for the hearts. Would be lovely for an anniversary or a birthday card for somebody you love. We've got the apples, send you some get well cheer. That would also work for a teacher, end of school year. And then we've got inspired by you. And then we've got, as I say, this cute little cat, but there's a little butterfly as well. Now Joan on Friday did a great card with the cat, so I'm going to use her idea. Morning, Sarah, and actually add this little cat to my basket in one of our lives later this week. So there's my basket, barrel, whatever. Now you can put anything in here. So what I would recommend you do is have a look through your stamp sets and see what else you could put inside your barrel. Obviously flowers would be perfect, and Carol on Friday did a great card which I had the inspiration for, and I'm so glad she did it, and that was using the Sending Smiles flowers, so that will also feature later this week. So do join us all week for this particular stamp set. So let's stamp. I'm going to put a happy birthday message, I think, and I'm going to use our go-to greetings. This is a new stamp set that has 4 greetings. No, it doesn't have, it has 5 different greetings because we have a hello here. But other than that, we have 4 greetings in 3 different styles. We have this very swirly one here. We have a slightly curly one, and then a slightly more formal one. And I'm going to use this one here, the happy birthday. Oh no, actually, I'm going to use just a note. Change my mind. Let me just find it here. As many of you know, I do like using just a note for my cards. So when you're saying she loves that stamp set, presumably you're talking about the sentiment set. It's just so useful, and it's perfect for coffee and card, because sometimes you want a larger space, or you know, you've got a larger space to fill, or a customer's got smaller space to fill. So it's perfect. Okay, just dry that off. So I'm going to pop this at the top. So this is just a note. Managed to ink it up a little bit too much. And if you're not happy stamping straight, sort of straight, you could do it at a definite jaunty angle. Okay, so that is all the stamping. Our little basket's going to go onto there, and I'm just going to do some very simple colouring in. Now the background colour I've got for my card is Tahitian Tide, one of our new in colours, so I'm going to use that for the ribbon, and I've got the blends pen, so I'm using the blends pens for colouring in. So I'm going to do this fairly quickly, hopefully, so you're not too bored. It's quite a simple area to colour in. You don't need to add much shading if you don't want to. Obviously the area is quite small in terms of filling it in. Okay, so we've got that one there. Let's do this one here. That's our little ink refill. And this one would be the ink pad. So I'm going to, but you could also, this could also be like a mobile phone or a notebook. But it is conveniently like one of our ink pads. So it's just going to fill that in there. And then I've just got assorted colours, so grey granite, smoky slate, that you can use for the scissors to look like it's metal. So I've got smoky slate here. And I use the dark for the handles. Yes, the variety of fonts is really good, isn't it, in that set? So that's a set that I almost always keep with me for coffee and card, for exactly that reason. So this is probably the fiddliest one to colour in. You could heat emboss this as well if you wanted to. So these are the other ones. So you've got the hearts and the apples, and obviously the little cat. But as I say, you could just have a look through your existing stamp sets and see what else you've got. That you could use to fill in. Let's have a red pencil. Here, and I'm just going off the bottom because it's going to be covered up. So I don't need to worry about it being perfectly in line. Let's have light yellow pen here. So it's Monday 23rd of May. Nearly, well, our last full week of May. Unbelievable, isn't it? There we go. And then I've got this paper here, but I think if you had somebody who was a sewer, then I think you could you know, this could be fabric rather than it necessarily being paper. And let's use pale papaya. Okay, so I'm not doing a great amount of shading. Obviously, if you've got plenty of time and you really enjoy colouring in, you could add a little bit more shading where the ribbon is sitting, for example. But I'm just happy with that as it is. Just do a little bit across there, so it's not quite as white like that. There we go. Okay, so our basket now is going to go up onto there, and then this is going to go onto our layer of Tahitian tide and then onto a white card. And I'm going to put this on with dimensionals, and I'm also going to use a bone folder just to soften this and give it a little bit of a curl, so as if you're doing curling ribbon, if you do that, so that it's a little bit more interesting. There we go, like that. So what I'm going to do is pop this layer onto here first. Let's move that out of the way. Find my glue. So perfect for crafting friends' birthdays. There we go. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of bling to this as well. Why not? Let me grab my dimensionals. So I'm going to put one each on each side, and then in the middle I'm going to put two stacked up together, just to keep that element of height in the middle. But so you don't need to stamp and cut out, you could just stamp straight onto here, but I wanted to avoid too much colouring in for my coffee and card attendees. There we go. So that's now got a nice sort of bow in the middle. If you can see that or not. Quite a nice 3D effect. If you had a stamp with balls of wool, that would look fab. We did have some wool with one of our older sets that had cats in. I don't know if it was Hello, no, it wasn't Hello Kitty, but it was something like that. If you've got that with the balls of wool, that would be really good fun. Okay, so just going to fold this over. Grab my bone folder, and you want to score both sides to make it sit nice and flat. This is going to go onto there. So I'm just using our Tombow glue. Like so. There we go. And a little bit of bling I think is required just to finish it off. Let's see what we've got. I think I've got some of, yeah, the blue and green gems that were part of the Waves collection. Hello Babsy. Thanks for joining us. I hope you had a nice weekend. So this has got some blues in. It's not an exact match, but I think it will do the job. So I'm going to use this sort of mid blue here. And these are in 2 different sizes. And oh, it's got a hair attached to it. How bizarre. Okay, and let's do that like that. There we go. So nice and simple start to a Monday, and I will stamp the envelope as well, probably just with this bit at the bottom. Let me show you that really quickly. Hi Katie. Need to find that there. Let's just bring our mat back out. There we go. So I've got my mat underneath. Here's my envelope, and I'm going to use this crafting supplies, and what I'm going to do is make sure I stamp it off the bottom so they're not floating. And I could also stamp these just on the inside of the card as well, but I'm going to put this to the left and deliberately have it coming off the envelope like so. And yes, I will put them inside, but I'm not going to colour them in, because if I use our blends pen it could seep through to the back. So let's just put this on the right hand side, going off the page like so. So there's the inside, there's our front, there's our envelope, which I probably will colour in, but I'll do that off camera. and just repeat this pattern here. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. So the stamp set is called Cheerful Basket. Thank you, Jeanette. Here, and I'll be featuring this as my stamp set of the week. It's in the catalogue on page, I think it was 35. Yes, it was. Which is this one here. And the stamp set itself is £18. And so I think you could use this for Valentine's, wedding, anniversary, a teacher, or just general. Crafting supplies for all your crafting friends. And I think, obviously with the cat and anything else. And I think you could use this with any other floral images as well. You could have these sunflowers cut out sitting on the top, couldn't you? That would be lovely, the smaller sunflower. That's given me an idea. So that's on page 35 of our annual catalogue. So thank you for joining me. I hope you have a good day today, and I shall be back tomorrow, Tuesday, at 7 p.m. for the next instalment using Cheerful Basket. If you have any questions on what I've covered today, if you've got any queries, then don't hesitate to just ask, pop a note in the comments. You can email me, you can just message me directly, whichever you want, and I look forward to crafting with you later in the week. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day, and I managed to finish roughly on time. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.